Now let's go across to Vietnam, where the US President Joe Biden is currently addressing the media.
Getting the relationship right. And one of the things that is going on now is China is beginning to change some of the rules of the game in terms of trade and other issues. And so one of the things we talked about, for example, is that they're now talking about making sure that no one in the Chinese government can use a Western cell phone, those kinds of things. And so really what this trip was about, it was less about containing China. I don't want to contain China. I just want to make sure we have a relationship with China that is on the up and up, squared away. Everybody knows what it's all about. And one of the ways you do that is you make sure that we are talking about the same things. And I think that one of the things we've done, I've tried to do, and I've talked with a number of my staff about this for the last, I guess, 6 months, is we have an opportunity to strengthen alliances around the world to maintain stability. That's what this trip is all about. Having India cooperate much more with the United States, be closer with the United States, Vietnam being closer with the United States. It's not about containing China. It's about having a stable base in the Indo-Pacific. And for example, when I was spending a lot of time talking with President Xi, he asked why was I going to have the Quad, meaning Australia, India, Japan, the United States. And I said to maintain stability. It's not about isolating China. It's about making sure the rules of the road, everything from airspace and space in the ocean, is the international rules of the road are abided by. And so, and I hope that, I think that Prime Minister Xi has some difficulties right now. All countries end up with difficulties, and he has some economic difficulties he's working his way through. I want to see China succeed economically, but I want to see him succeed by the rules. The next question was to Bloomberg.
Mr. President, following up on your comments on China and the economy, you recently called China's economy a ticking time bomb. Do you believe the country's slowdown could risk destabilizing the global economy or causing China to be more aggressive defensively?
Say the first part of your question again, because this fan is going on. It's loud behind me.
No worries. Do you believe the country's slowdown in growth could risk destabilizing the global economy or cause China to be more aggressive defensively, including with Taiwan? And separately, sir, are you worried about the meeting between President Putin and Kim Jong-un, if that could mean Russia has more gains in the war in Ukraine?
Look, I think China has a difficult economic problem right now for a whole range of reasons that relate to international growth and lack thereof, and the policies that China has followed. And so I don't think it's going to cause China to invade Taiwan. As a matter of fact, the opposite, probably doesn't have the same capacity that it had before. But as I said, we're not looking to hurt China, sincerely. We're all better off if China does well. China does well by the international rules, grows the economy. But they have had some real difficulty in terms of their economy of late, particularly in real estate, that end of the bargain. And I think the actions that they're going to have to take are ones that they're in the process of deciding right now. And I'm not going to predict what way will come out, but we're not looking to decouple from China. What I'm not going to do is I'm not going to sell China material that would enhance their capacity to make more nuclear weapons, to engage in defense activities that are contrary to what is viewed as most people think is a positive development in the region. And but we're not trying to hurt China. Okay, BBC, War. Am I correct? Is that correct, Laura?
It is. My name is Laura Bicker. I'm from BBC News. Good evening, Mr. President.
Good
How are
evening.
you?
Well, thank you.
Good.
These 5-day trips around the world are no problem.
I can imagine. It is evening, I'd like to remind you. I mean, in the last 6 months, you've signed pacts and deals with Japan, South Korea, Philippines, Australia, even the Pacific Islands. You're here standing in Beijing's backyard. Now, China says this is part of your Cold War mentality. Are they right, sir? Are they right, Mr. President? Is there a danger of a Cold War? And when will you meet Mr. Xi?
Well, I hope I get to see Mr. Xi sooner than later. I've spent more time with him than any other world leader has, sum total over the last 12 years. So I hope we get to see him again soon. But, no, look, for example, one of the things we did in India, we provided for a new path that's going to save everybody money, increase the global South's capacity to grow by sending. We're going to have a new railroad from India all the way across to the Mediterranean, shipping lanes and pipelines across the Mediterranean through Europe up into Great Britain and beyond. That's all about economic growth. It has nothing to do with hurting China or helping China. It has to do with dealing with everything from climate change to making sure that these countries can succeed economically and grow. Look, my thesis has been from the beginning, both domestically and in terms of foreign policy, invest in your people. Invest in the people. Give them a chance. Everything's better off when people, it's going to sound trite, if everybody in the world had a job they got up in the morning and wanted to go to and thought they could put 3 squares on the table for their family no matter where they live, the whole world would be better off. It would be a lot better. That's the notion here behind this. For example, you know, one of the things we're doing in terms of, I proposed a long time ago at the G7, now it's going to come to fruition at the G20, is making sure that we build a railroad all the way across the African continent. Think about it. There is no way to cross the African continent by road, by rail, and there's not even a direct highway across. Now let's assume, for the sake of discussion, we talk about food shortages. Assume there was one country in that vast continent that had an excess of foodstuffs and resources. How would they get it to where they're going to go? How are they going to do it? That's why we're also going to invest billions of dollars in solar facilities in Angola, to have the largest solar facility in the world, or among the largest. That helps Angola, but also helps the whole region. So I think we think too much in terms of Cold War terms. It's not about that. It's about generating economic growth and stability in all parts of the world. And that's what we're trying to do. Sorry. Okay. Am I pronouncing it Avilia? Did I pronounce the name correctly? There you are.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank
It's
you.
Aurelia and for AFP. I had a question on the climate crisis. You just mentioned the G20. Just this week, the United States warned that if there is no phasing out of fossil fuels, it won't be possible to reach the goals of the Paris Agreement. There was no agreement at the G20 on fossil fuels. How concerned are you about this lack of consensus?
It wasn't so much an agreement that we would try to meet the goals of the G20. The United States is going to meet those goals, by the way. We're going to exceed those goals. A lot of other countries are as well. But we want to give those countries that don't have the economic wherewithal and did not cause the problem in the first place. For example, I met with Lula in Brazil. I started off way back in the 80s with a really fine Republican senator named Dick Lugar. We said, here's what we're going to do. If you owe us money, we're going to forgive your debt if you maintain your forest, because they become carbon sinks. They're the things that take carbon out of the air.